Hey, good morning, you fine, fabulous book people. It is Well Read Beard, and it's a damn fine day to talk about a book. And today we are here for Beard on King, episode 32. Episode 32. And we're going to talk about Insomnia. This is a read for me. I read this book. I don't know if I read it right when it came out because I think it came out in 1994. I am pretty sure. Um, yeah, 1994. But this is a reread, and I did it on the audio. One thing I want to point out right now before I forget it is that the audio has music, and most of it's at like chapter breaks, but not all of it. And that music is not comforting. It is a grating um music, and I'm just telling you that because I did feel that like it definitely added to the experience. Normally, the music, at chapter breaks or whatever in audiobooks, I can take it or leave it. It doesn't necessarily really affect my feeling towards the book, but in this one in particular, that music was like I can't think of a better word than grating. It just really was. So much so I mean, I'd hit those parts, and my wife would, I mean, like almost painful. I mean, to the ear, really. Hold on. So, Insomnia. I just finished my read through of The Dark Tower, and I did Insomnia because Insomnia has ties to The Dark Tower. Um, because of Patrick Danville, which I'll go into briefly. I'm not going to go hugely into the book, but also because of the Crimson King. The Crimson King plays a role in this story. So, um, I'm going to keep it fairly basic. Our main character is Ralph Roberts. He is an old man, and that initially kind of I don't know. I kept going down the rabbit hole of just thinking about a an older retired widow. His wife has passed. What do you call that when a man's wife? It's not a widow, is it? Widow anyway. His wife has passed on, and he's really just kind of you know going through the motions of his day to day. Kind of um, just not really a lot going on. Right, retired, kind of stays at home all the time, and whatever. Just kind of living doctor appointment to the next doctor appointment. But I went down this rabbit hole of thinking about how that could be a pretty cool. I mean, I've never thought of it like this, but that could be a pretty cool technique as a writer to use a. I mean, again, I don't know exactly how old Ralph was. Let's say he was 70, just for the sake of argument. Let's say he was 70, um, and but to use an older character like that because at you know I mean, you can take them to the end, right? Like you can take them all the way to, I mean, you could take them to a bad end, like a really, really bad end, and your readers on one side of the coin, I think you would lose some of that shock value, right? Like if you got a 20-year-old that goes through the actions of this book and something horrible happens to him at the end, you're like, oh man, he prime of his life, this and that. But if you use a 70-year-old man and do the exact same things, I feel like it's got a completely different effect. And uh, I don't know, like it almost feels like you would lose something, right? Like you would lose a little bit of that shock value, that a little bit of that. Why did they have to, whatever? So, and I'm just saying, I just had that thought in general. I'm not saying that's what happens to Ralph Roberts or whatever, but I just kept thinking about the idea of using, older people. I'm mid. I'm 48, but older people as your main protagonists or whatever. So Ralph, I mean, there's a lot going on here, and I'm just gonna kind of hit like things. Another thing about this book is that it's King's. I mean, there may be more. It may be touched on in other books as well, but it's King's pro-life, pro-choice, abortion book. I mean, there a lot of this stuff centers around a local abortion clinic and the fact that Susan Day, who is this feminist, pro-choice leader is coming to town. Okay. And so, you know, a lot of stuff going on with conspiracy theories and we, like early on we run into this guy, Ed Deepno. They're out at a an airfield, like an airport, and Ralph runs into him, and he's basically road raging on this guy, and he believes that this guy has a truckload of aborted baby parts that he's doing something with. That's and we kind of start to get like little tidbits of crazy. I mean, definite crazy, but then like something will happen that will be like it'll bring up the Crimson King, and you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, but yeah, this is a very abortion centered book. Pro life, pro choice, warring within a very very small town, and we've got this public figure coming in. So Ralph starts to experience insomnia, and it just gets worse and worse. Just waking up at. I mean, I don't know the exact time. He probably woke up at 6 a.m. anyways, but he starts to wake up at 5:30, and then it's 5, and then it's 4:30, and so on, to where he's really not sleeping at all. And as that worsens, he starts to see things that normal people can't see. He starts to see auras, and light like stuff surrounding people, and everyone's got this, call it like a balloon string, but that's their life force or whatever. And so one night he witnesses two little bald doctors, these two small men. They're bald, they're in doctor's coats, and one of them's got a really really long pair of scissors. And he witnesses them going into his neighbor's house, another elderly woman, and then witnesses him leave. And odd, but he's out of his mind with no sleep, and seeing things and whatnot. And anyway, she dies, the woman. So to make a long story short, he realizes, or these little bald doctors are basically death, and they will go and snip the string, and then that person will die. But these people are, and there's names for it. Let me see, because they serve I believe it's the purpose. Yeah, the purpose. And basically what that means is, when someone is supposed to go peacefully because it's their time, they initiate the chain reaction that will make that happen very soon. But there's another one, and their names are, was it Clothos and Lachesis? Those are the two. And then there's another one named Atropos. I think that's right. Who is a servant, a soldier of the random. So the purpose and the random is chaos. The random is everyone that dies prematurely. Every teenager that gets killed in a car accident, every child that dies of sudden infant death syndrome. All that is the random, and that is Atropos, basically out there fucking shit up, for lack of a better way of putting it. So that's what you got going on. Ralph can see shit, and because of the lack of sleep, and he sees these little bald doctors. Now look, for me, the manifestation of the little bald doctors, was not my favorite form, I guess, of a Stephen King antagonist. And while I'm there, I'm just going to say that, this is kind of a middle of the road Stephen King book for me. I mean, it is a monster. It's 800. I'm not even going to look. I'm just going to say it's 800 pages long. For me, what's in this story, and because there's not a shit ton of characters really, and there's not a, I don't know. I feel like this book could have been quite a bit shorter. Now, look, it is what it is. I'm here for the ride. Like I said, this was a reread. I remember at the time though, like I remember on first read, because look, this is coming in 1994. This is not far on the tails of the masterpieces. The Salem's Lots, the Shinings, the Stands, the this, the that. And so like I remember. I mean, I don't remember, but I mean, you see a book this size with Stephen King's name on it back in 1994. Like, I remember kind of being let down by it. So anyway, I think it's probably too long, but it's a middle of the road Stephen King book for me. 3 stars. Okay, so seeing these people, he's got one that's out here, messing shit up for the random, and he's got these two guys that are two bald doctors that are just doing the normal death stuff, I guess. All right, so it kind of jump forward, but he realizes that this doctor of the random is basically in cahoots with the Crimson King because the Crimson King wants chaos and all this, wants chaos and disorder and conspiracy and warring, pro-life, pro-choice. He wants all this stuff going on. That's what he wants to rule over, But Atropos is kind of in service of the Crimson King to get this Ed Deepno fella um to do something. Now, you get where I'm going with this. I mean, you're not stupid. You read books. You know that I said there's an event happening at. Did I say that this takes place in Derry, Maine? I don't think I did. That's another major point I want to focus on. Derry, Maine, definitely a bonus for this book. Now, to be honest with you, again, I was reading these things in the 80s and 90s. So coming back to this in 2024, I would have told, I mean, I know a lot of his early books took place in Maine, but I would have told you Derry played a more central role. I would have said that it was in more books. I mean, now, upon refreshing my lost knowledge of that, I mean, it feels like Derry was only it. And it also says Dreamcatcher, but I don't understand that. Again, I'll reread these at some point, but because I know Dreamcatcher takes place at a hunting cabin out in the woods, I don't really remember Derry's significance to that story, but of course I do remember Derry's significance to it. But so it's Derry. The Barons play a role in this, and all that stuff. So and Mike Hanlon plays a role in this. Mike Hanlon is the local librarian, and this, and I think, yeah, Anyway, so I got off track. So we're coming to a climax, right? We know there's this event. We know we got Ed Deepno out here at the airport. What's he doing at the airport? Anyway, at the airport, accusing this dude of trafficking aborted baby parts. We know we got a Tropos who is a servant of the random, and we know we got the Crimson King who just wants fucking chaos and drama. So, um, the event. I mean, that's what we're spiraling towards is that Ed Deepno is out at the airport because he's learning how to fly, and he's going to fly a small plane into the event. Now, when I realized that that's where that was going, I was like, huh. I was like, I wonder when this book came out. It must have come out like, I mean, because I couldn't remember. I could not remember. I was like, this book must have came out 2004. Because I remember there was a four. I was like, it had to come out after 9/11, right? I mean, crashing a plane into an event. And I'm not saying it's the first time that's ever happened. I know that, um, kamikaze piloting is a tactic of war, but I don't know that. I mean, I personally don't know of it happening to like a civilian type thing. I'm sure it happens all over but for us as Americans or whatever, 9/11 kind of stands out. And I was like, shit, this was written 7 years, or this was put out 7 years before that. Anyway, off track again. But that's going on. And Ralph and Lois, his friend, who also can see things and do things, are on a crash course to kind of stop that, and that's really But there's more to this story. That there's more to the follow up of that culmination. Uh, I mean, and I keep wanting to say things, that are major points, but kind of small points. That don't make no sense. Major points, but kind of like not really central to. I mean, for example, I want to tell you what happens to the feminist leader, the public figure that comes to town. I want to tell you about that. I want to tell you um, what happens when Ralph intervenes. Like, what is the damage? But what we find out is um, that Ralph is put on this task to serve the purpose and random, because there is a small child in that at that event that needs to be saved, and that small child is Patrick Danville, who, again, I wouldn't have known this a month ago, but I just recently finished The Dark Tower, and Patrick Danville plays a major role in the defeat of the Crimson King. So the Crimson King is trying to nip Patrick Danville in the bud at a very young age, and Ralph Roberts is intervening to keep that from happening. I mean, I like Ralph as a character. I like Lois as a character. Again, the little bald doctors, to me, that's the thing. Like in general, I'm not crazy about when King goes to weird places, which I know a lot of it does. But anyway, but really, ties to the Dark Tower through Patrick Danville and the Crimson King. There are also some ties here and there to other books. Now, like the last thing I want to talk about, Atropos, they kind of go into his lair. They find out where he's hanging out, and in there he's got souvenirs. Like he takes souvenirs of the people that he, again, the starts the end of their lives, basically. Cuts off their, and and he doesn't have scissors. He has a rusty scalpel. But as you're going through there are things in there, and a lot of these things probably had ties to other King stories. But the one that stood out to me was a little shoe that belonged to a boy named Gage Creed from Pet Cemetery. So again, that was really cool too. But all in all, I mean, it's a good read. I don't think it had to be this long. Not, I don't have a problem with it. I've got nowhere else to be. But in general, I think that you know uh, one thing I think about when I judge these things is I guess people are like, why you read all this King, like why do you read Stephen King, why do you read so much of it, why do you read, why are you rereading Stephen King's books, and so I need to be able to say, probably leave that one over there, or that's where you want to start. You want to start with that one and then read that one. But so look, for me, middle of the road. Probably too long. I think I've already said that. So, this has been my red beard. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I know I am enjoying all the nostalgia that comes back, to me diving into these. I was a senior in high school in 1994, diving into these King books that basically lit up my world when they hit the shelf back then. So anyway, hope you're enjoying all your books as much as I am. If not, you're reading the wrong damn